Kenya. The very name evokes images of sweeping savannas, majestic wildlife, and vibrant cultures. It's a nation brimming with potential, a powerhouse in East Africa, yet beneath this surface of promise lies a nation grappling with deep-seated challenges, a nation teetering on the brink. Political turmoil has cast a long shadow over Kenya. The recent impeachment of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua amidst allegations of corruption and tribalism has ignited protests and deepened existing divisions. The ruling coalition appears increasingly fragile, its grip on power tenuous. But the unrest runs deeper than political maneuvering. Economic hardship has become a suffocating reality for millions of Kenyans. The rising cost of living has pushed basic necessities out of reach, leaving families struggling to put food on the table. As the gap between the haves and have-nots widens, a sense of despair pervades the nation. The Kenyan people, known for their resilience and spirit, find themselves at a crossroads, questioning the path their leaders have chosen. Kenya's political landscape has long been shaped by external forces, with the United States wielding considerable influence. Washington's interests in the region, often presented under the guise of security cooperation and economic development, have had a profound impact on Kenyan policy. The US ambassador to Kenya, for instance, plays a remarkably active role in the country's internal affairs. From issuing public statements on political matters to engaging directly with government officials, the ambassador's influence extends far beyond traditional diplomatic norms. This level of involvement raises concerns about Kenyan sovereignty and the extent to which external actors are dictating the nation's course. Critics argue that the US prioritizes its own strategic objectives, often at the expense of Kenya's best interests. The question remains, is Kenya truly master of its own destiny, or is it merely a pawn in a larger geopolitical game? President William Ruto came to power promising a bottom-up economic revolution, one that would uplift the poor and empower the marginalized. Yet, his policies tell a different story. Ruto has doubled down on his predecessor's embrace of Western-backed economic policies that have often exacerbated inequality and left ordinary Kenyans worse off now. The controversial finance bill, passed amidst widespread protests, is a stark example. This legislation, which imposes new taxes and levies, disproportionately burdens the poor and middle class while offering little relief to those struggling to make ends meet. Ruto's decision to align Kenya more closely with the West, both economically and politically, has come at a cost. His government's pursuit of foreign investment and loans has led to accusations that he is mortgaging the nation's future to appease international creditors. The Kenyan people, meanwhile, are left to grapple with the consequences: rising prices, stagnant wages, and a shrinking social safety net. As Ruto strengthens ties with the West, he has simultaneously distanced Kenya from alternative economic partnerships, most notably the BRICS group of nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This bloc of emerging economies presents a potential counterweight to Western dominance, offering developing nations like Kenya alternative avenues for trade, investment, and development assistance. Ruto's decision to forego closer engagement with BRICS has raised eyebrows. Some analysts argue that he is missing an opportunity to diversify Kenya's economic partnerships and reduce its reliance on Western powers. Others question whether his decision was influenced by pressure from the US, which views BRICS with suspicion. Regardless of the rationale, Ruto's stance on BRICS reflects a broader trend of aligning Kenyan foreign policy with Western interests, even when those interests may not align with the needs of the Kenyan people. Section 5. Empty plates, full pockets, corruption's grip on Kenya. Corruption, a scourge that has plagued Kenya for decades, continues to drain the nation's resources and undermine public trust. Despite promises to tackle this endemic problem, the Ruto administration has made little progress in holding corrupt officials accountable. Scandals involving the misappropriation of public funds, often linked to high-ranking government officials, regularly make headlines. Yet prosecutions are rare, and those found guilty often escape with lenient punishments. This culture of impunity sends a clear message: corruption pays, And while the political elite lines its pockets, ordinary Kenyans are left to bear the brunt of the consequences. Crumbling infrastructure, inadequate healthcare, and a lack of access to basic services. Section 6. A generation betrayed the plight of Kenya's youth. Kenya boasts a young and vibrant population, full of potential and eager to contribute to the nation's development. Yet this generation faces a bleak reality: soaring unemployment, limited opportunities, and a political system that seems indifferent to their plight. The government's failure to address the needs of its youth has created a ticking time bomb. Frustration is mounting, and desperation is driving many young Kenyans to the brink. The government's response to their grievances has often been heavy-handed. Peaceful protests are met with tear gas and batons, silencing dissent rather than addressing the underlying issues. Section 7. Beyond the headlines, the human cost of crisis. The statistics paint a grim picture of Kenya's current predicament: rising poverty rates, declining life expectancy, and increasing social unrest. But beyond the cold, hard numbers lie countless human stories of struggle, resilience, and heartbreak. Meet Mama Amina, a single mother of 3 who can no longer afford to feed her children due to soaring food prices. Or Joseph, a recent university graduate who, despite his qualifications, remains unemployed and disillusioned. These are the faces of Kenya's crisis, the human cost of failed policies and broken promises. Their stories, too often overlooked, are a stark reminder of the urgent need for change. Section 8. A call to action: reclaiming Kenya's future. Kenya stands at a crossroads. The path chosen by its leaders in the coming months and years will determine the fate of a nation. Will they continue down a path of subservience to external powers, enriching themselves at the expense of the people? Or will they choose a different path, one that prioritizes the needs of its citizens and charts a course towards a more just and equitable future? The answer lies not with the political elite, but with the Kenyan people themselves. It is time for them to rise up, to demand better from their leaders, and to hold them accountable for their actions. The future of Kenya is not preordained. It is a future that must be fought for, a future that must be built by the collective will of a people determined to reclaim their destiny.